Okay, everybody, I think we're making pretty good progress through the Zoan videos. We've already talked about the dogs and the cats and the birds and the oxen and the horses and the elephants and the... Oh, man, Christmas came early this year. We get to talk about the dinosaurs today. Oh, yeah. And especially I'm excited because I finally get a chance to use this giant dinosaur encyclopedia that I bought a year ago at Ollie's. Oh, yeah. It's all coming together. I don't know if you've ever shopped at an Ollie's before. It's like a discount franchise sort of place. You can find a bunch of stuff in there. They have a huge book section, and I was in there with some friends a year ago, and I was just kind of browsing, and then I found this thing. And the coolest thing about this book is, like, the inside of it, like, this thing is like a damn Pokedex. Like, it is very highly detailed. It has, like, custom artwork for, like, every single dinosaur that you can imagine. It's got pictures of, like, real-life fossils in here. Like, look at this. This is the fossil of a iguanodon. I never even heard of that before, but check this out. It's got like a location of like where it is and its height and its weight, and like it is like a freaking Pokedex. All right, here's my plan for a new franchise. All right, you know how it's like Pokemon, you travel the world, search far and wide, and you collect various Pokemon, you put them in balls and you throw them at people and whatever. Okay, we're gonna do that, but we're gonna do it with dinosaurs. We're gonna have a group of like the main cast of like 6 kids that get teleported back to like the Cretaceous era or something, and instead of catching Pokemon, they collect dinosaurs, and they build their own teams, and they fight against like evil shadow dinosaurs or some shit like that. I don't know. Am I ripping off Pokemon and Digimon at the same time? Yeah, probably, but those franchises have been ripped off so many times, it doesn't even matter at this point. Let's go do it. We'll call it Dino Monsters. Like, not even clever at all, but let's go ahead with it. All right, so we have 6 dinosaur zones in the story. However, they aren't actually called the dino fruits or anything like that. No, they are actually dragons. Dinosaurs are dragons in the context of One Piece. Look, before we even really get into this, we're going to have to understand that Oda doesn't really know a lot about dinosaurs. But that's okay, because what he's given us is truly a gold mine of hilarity, okay? So the term for dragon in Japanese, if you have been watching anime at all for like the last decade, as I'm sure many of you have, is Ryu. Ryu. There you go. That's dragon. There's the kanji for it, Ryu. It means dragon or big serpent or like mythical lizard. And any sort of like magical, mythical, divine lizard or serpent is usually Ryu. Okay, then you have the word for dinosaur, which in Japanese is Kyo-Ryu. So it includes the kanji for dragon. And kyo, in this context, just means fearful or terrifying or really, really scary. So you put them together and you basically get fear dragon or terrifying dragon. Roar, right? And hey, it kind of fits because isn't Tyrannosaurus Rex, basically that translates out to Latin as like terrible lizard or scary lizard, so hey, it's fine. So I guess, you know, Oda could have called them something related to dinosaurs, but just make them dragons. Except for Kaido, who actually does turn into a real mythical dragon that can breathe fire and shit. He doesn't have a Ryu no Mi. He doesn't have a dragon fruit. He has the Ua no Mi, the fish fruit model as your dragon. Which would have been perfectly fine if it wasn't for the fact that in the most recent arc, we have Killingham, Rimoshiff, one of the God's Knights, that has the power of the Ryu no Mi model Kirin. So it's a mythical dragon fruit that transforms him not into a dinosaur, but a mythical creature called a Kirin. So I don't know what the rules are here, okay? The only thing I can kind of bring up with this, though, is it seems to imply that dragons, like actual fire-breathing, flying dragons, existed at some point in the One Piece world. And they went extinct somewhere. I don't know, maybe Ryuma killed them all. We only know he killed one dragon. Maybe Ryuma was responsible for the extinction of every dragon on the entire planet, right? Well, anyway, all the dragons died at some point, and eventually when Vegapunk came around and he joined the government, the Tenryubito were like commissioning him to do some like biological experimentation to make more dragons. So we have like dragon number 13. We see a Punk hazard. Zorro kills that one. And then we also have the smaller green dragon, which I don't think was ever given a name. But yeah, so there seems to be an idea that maybe dragons, like at least the kind of dragon that like Kaido was it mythical? It was like an actual animal at some point, and maybe that's why it's classified as the fish fruit. But then when it comes to a Kirin, those really are mythical creatures that never existed in the One Piece world. Killingham just has the devil fruit of one, and it's classified as a mythical dinosaur or a mythical dragon. That's the best I got. I don't really know. But anyway, yeah, I hope that clears up the confusion there between dragons and dinosaurs. They are one and the same, except when they're not. Yeah. All right. So let's kick this off by talking about the first character in this story that was ever shown to turn into a dinosaur. In fact, first character to introduce the concepts of ancient Zoans. We didn't even know they existed up until this fruit. So, he's a member of the supernovas. You know him. You love him. He isn't the supernova that's done the least amount of stuff in this story. That would be a Rouge. But I would say a good contender for being the next person that has done the least amount of things in this story. We have Diaz, Red Flag, Captain of Sword, Drake. It's Drake. We're talking about Drake. All right. So Drake can transform into an Allosaur, not a Tyrannosaur, not a Tyrannosaurus Rex. I feel like the T-Rex is probably the most notable dinosaur like ever because of Jurassic Park, right? So I always wondered, why did Oda not just make Drake turn into a T-Rex? I mean, everybody would know immediately what the hell that thing is. I'll tell you why. It's because the Allosaur is way scarier. I'm just gonna read you the description of this from the Dinosaur Pokedex, verbatim. This is, like, I'm not kidding. This is actually what it says. Allosaur was a killing machine. Fast, powerful, and able to attack anything it came across. It was the top predator for more than 10 million years. The wealth of specimens found has allowed paleontologists to build a detailed picture of its anatomy and habits. But questions remain. How fast could it run? Although swift, it was top-heavy and risked serious injury if it fell onto its short front arms. Did it hunt in packs? Fossils have found grouped together, but many have accumulated after death. But they may have accumulated after death. Okay, so, yeah, this thing really is like a Pokedex. You know how Pokedex entries sometimes have really weird, really kind of creepy and disturbing entries? This one literally opens up with, yeah, this thing right here, yeah, if you can't already tell by the giant head and the rows of razor-sharp teeth, it was a killing machine. This thing was a damn monster, and there wasn't anything that could stop it. It's in your own damn army. Even a little timeline down here. Look at the little timeline down here to see when he lived. So just be thankful you're all the way over here, and it was all the way back there, because you don't want to run into this thing in a dark alley, or anywhere, really. I wouldn't want to run into this thing in a nice sunny field in the middle of the summer. That would not be nice. All right. So, yeah, in that regard, it's very similar to T-Rex in that big lizard, big head, lot of sharp teeth, tiny little arms, and it would just rip people apart. The one thing that I do like in this case in One Piece is that we actually have seen, I'm pretty sure, every single dinosaur Zoan's hybrid form and the full Zoan animal form. I think Oda's been pretty good about showing us every single form from the dinosaurs, right? Wano and Kaido's Beast Pirates, those were definitely the main source of Zoans that we were going to get in this story. Not to say we aren't going to get more. I mean, Killingham has one, for instance. But when it comes to, like, getting that many Zoans in one arc, that was Wano, absolutely, all right? So, yeah, really big, scary lizard. Drake doesn't have any named techniques. He just turns into a big dinosaur, and I'll be honest with you, most of the time he does that, it doesn't really work out for him. He turned into a big dinosaur, and he attacked a Pachycephalosaurs, like, roar! And he bit the head of a Pachycephalosaurs. Doesn't give a shit. It's a robot. And I would imagine the idea of turning into a big dinosaur, like, there's an intimidation factor there. It is literally fearful lizard, terrifying lizard, right? If Drake rolled up in most fights and turned into a huge dinosaur with rows of razor-sharp teeth, I think most people are just gonna give the fuck up and run away, right? Like, why would you stay and fight that, right? But a Pacifista doesn't really have that too much, so it just kind of blasted Drake, and he went back down into his human form with a giant hole punched through his abdomen, and he was like, all right, Vegapunk has upgraded the pacifistas a little bit. Damn. All right, so that was the first showing we had of Drake, and then I think Kizaru shows up and just kind of like stabs him really quick, and that just kind of, you know, takes him out of the arc at that point there. Let's see. He turned into a dinosaur to fight against Scotch, which I guess he did win there. A lot of Drake's victories are usually off-screen or in cover pages. So he defeated Scotch in a cover page on that island. The same island Caribou shows up on later. And then I guess he turns into a dinosaur and defeats Caribou, but I believe that was in silhouette. He can only win when it's in silhouette, you know? And then we see him at Wano, right? Then we see him at Wano. He shows up a little bit there. Who could forget the scene where he walks into the women's bath and he sees Nami and he immediately passes out? Like, that was a fun scene, right? Yeah, okay. And then he turns into a big dinosaur at the festival hall where he's like, Luffy, Straw Hats, I'm on your side now. Please trust me. And they're like, what? Huh? What? And that didn't really go anywhere either. There wasn't really a big moment. I mean, I guess they took out some of the numbers togethers, but that was kind of it. You know what I mean? After that, Drake kind of goes off to fight against Apu and the members of Cypher Pool Zero. And that leads to like one of the most disappointing things for Drake's character, honestly. Like, he had a member of Cypher Pool Zero like dead to rights. He had him ran through with his sword. He had basically effectively won the fight, but I don't know if he like let his guard down or he assumed that he was dead, but then the Cypher Pool member was able to zip off of the sword, rush around him, and stab Drake in the back of the damn throat, and that knocked him out, and that was the end of that. So, damn, Drake, you had the coup de grace. You were literally stabbing your enemy through the chest with your sword. Just, like, use that dino strength and just rip him in half and you win, you know? But like, damn, Drake. Oh, see, that's the thing, Drake. You're an actual dinosaur. You know, what was that whole thing that we talked about carnivorous Zoans? This thing is like the most carnivore that you could possibly imagine. Where's that passion, Drake? Where's that rage? Where's that roar? Drake, listen. You are not my most favorite character in this story. Far from it. You're not even in, like, the top 50. But you're not in, like, my least favorite character either, okay? I just feel like you haven't had the opportunity to shine, all right? But you're still alive. You're recovering in the hospital. Drake, I want you to come back into this story, and I want to see some passion. I want you to turn into an awakened fucking Allosaur, and I want you to rip apart something. All right, I want you to go up against freaking Top Man as the big boar and just turn into an awakened dinosaur and just rip it apart. And then it heals, and then you rip it apart again, because that's what this thing was designed to do. All right, I'm getting a little intense here. I should probably wind it back a little bit. All right. Okay. All right. So moving on to the next dinosaur. I'm expecting good things from you, Drake. Okay. Next dinosaur we have up. Let's talk about the Pachycephalosaurus. Just because I like talking about Pachycephalosaurus. It's a fun word to say. In fact, the longest dinosaur name, I believe, is Micropachycephalosaurus, you know, so that's the variation of this one. All right, here we go. There we have right there, the Pachycephalosaurus, dinosaur with a big head, rams into things really hard. It's actually not as big as you might expect. Like, here is a comparison between, just like a Pokedex, they give you a comparison between the animal and the human body. So there we go. There's an average human standing next to a Pachycephalosaurus, right? All right, Pachycephalosaurus was not a particularly large dinosaur, but it had a huge head with a very thick dome-shaped skull that was up to 25 centimeters thick. That's over 10 inches. It owed its strange appearance to the row of bony knobs that encircled the top of its head and its snout. Pachycephalosaurus used their thick skulls to kill or hurt attackers. All right, so it even shows you a little diagram over here of how they, like, attacked and, like, rammed into each other, you know what I mean? Like, a lot of, like a mountain goat, they'll bash their heads into each other, right? And it, like, echoes for miles. Imagine the sounds these things must have made when they bashed into each other, okay? But anyway, yeah, we have Ulti, member of the Tobiropo. All of the Tobiropo have the powers of ancient zones. As some of them are not dinosaurs, like Black Maria's was the Rosamagalia gravagelli, which was a spider, and she was in the spider zoans, and then you have Who's Who was the saber-toothed cat, who was in the cat videos, but they are all ancient aside from that. So yeah, Ulti has 2 named attacks in her Pachycephalosaurus form. She has one in her hybrid and one of her full form. The One in her full form was Ulti Meteor, and it was actually supposed to be like a really, really powerful move where she turned into her full dinosaur, grabbed Luffy, and was about to rear back and just slam right into him, to the point where Luffy actually showed a little bit of like concern over that, of like, oh, this is gonna hurt. Because you imagine, like, Ulti wasn't the strongest Tobiropo, but she was still a member of the damn Tobiropo. Full Pachycephalosaurus, the raw power of nature in dinosaur form. Armament hockey up that forehead as you just slam it in. Like, Luffy was like, oh, I better go into gear fourth here. I better do something. I do not want to get hit by this. Now, at that exact moment, Yamato showed up and cut down Ulti, and we didn't really get to see the shot of, like, how devastating that attack could really be, right? But it was called Ulti Meteor, and I don't know if you guys know this. I don't know if you know anything about, paleontology or geography or anything like that, but it was a meteor what killed the dinosaurs. Yeah, meteor came out of nowhere. In fact, there's ever a meteor fruit in this story, oh man, all the dinosaurs are screwed. At that point, Drake, it's okay for you to go run and hide and go somewhere. Just like, he's like, Drake shows up for the final battle. All right, I'm here. And then we find out the legendary devil fruit of Elbaf is like the meteor paramecia or something. And Drake is like, okay, never mind. I'm gone. This is not going to end well. I'm out of here. And he leaves. Right away. Yeah, so that was like the full powered attack that she had, but we never really got to see the damn thing. Then in her hybrid form, we have the Ulti Mortar, which the mortar is not quite as powerful as a meteor, so you can see where it upgrades. This was the technique she used on Usopp. Now, this is a thing, because we all know Usopp is God, right? Yeah, so, he was able to tank this attack. I mean, he's God, absolutely. But in realistic, looking at the story as the way it's intended, Usopp is, as we say, not the strongest Straw Hat. I know, but he does have pretty good endurance. I mean, he was able to survive a 4-ton bat to the face back at Alabasta, so why can't he survive a hybrid Zoan Pachycephalosaurus headbutt charged up with armament hockey right to the dome? Usopp survives this, and I'm not exactly sure how he did it. Every single part of his skull should have been reduced to actual dust from this attack, because Usopp does not know armament hockey to, like, counter this. I don't know how he survived, but he did. Maybe he is God. I don't know. Either that or this is just a really, really weak move from Ulti, but no, it's not. It's pretty devastating, right? Okay, so yeah, Pachycephalosauruses. They're neat. They got the cool heads. They have their eyes. The eyes face forward, which means the Pachycephalosaurus probably had binocular vision. They had binoculars back then in the Cretaceous? That was insane. Man, I'm learning so much from this book today. So next up, we have Ulti's little brother, Page 1, or as she calls him, Pepe. And Pepe's ability is the Ryuryu no Mi model Spinosaur. So check it out. And you know what? I feel like Page 1 might be one of the most divisive members of the Tobiropo, and the Spinosaur also one of the most divisive dinosaurs. And I think this combination works really well in that way. So the Spinosaurus, I think, first rose to like pop cultural like prominence with Jurassic Park 3. Not the greatest Jurassic Park movie, but we have a dinosaur introduced in that movie, the Spinosaur, and it was supposed to be like, oh, there was a dinosaur even more devastatingly powerful than the T-Rex. We have the Spinosaur, and that's kind of like the main threat of the movie, okay? It like overshadows the T-Rex itself, and fans didn't really care for it too much. In fact, in Jurassic World, when they started making the new line of Jurassic Park movies, there was a scene where the T-Rex breaks through this fossil of a Spinosaur to kind of be like, yeah, screw you, Spinosaurus. You suck. The T-Rex is and has always been top dinosaur. It's kind of like that, right? So a little bit divisive there. And the Spinosaurus, even like if you look at the Spinosaurus here in this image compared to the one that shows up in Jurassic Park 3, it's very different, and the size and shape of its head is very different as well. Hold on a minute. When did this book get published? Because I know that there was some stuff that came out in 2020 that Oda actually altered Page 1's dinosaur design because of it. Okay, so this actually got published in 2017, so it would actually have been a little bit before that. But yeah, there was some new stuff that's being discovered that the Spinosaurus actually might have been an aquatic dinosaur, and its tail would have actually been used more as like, it has like fins in order for it to like swim in the water. Like at the very least, it was semi-aquatic, okay? And so that was something that that wasn't really shown too much in the movie, and also when Oda originally drew page 1, the tail didn't have the fins on it, and then later on Oda adds those in. There's also a thing where Oda removes the horns like around the eyebrows of page 1 and like adds them in later. Yeah, it's like a whole thing. It goes over some designs and some changes, but anyway, I'll read this here. The carnivorous dinosaur Spinosaurus lived in North Africa about 100 million years ago. At present, only the skull and backbone of Spinosaurus have been described in any great detail. See, some new stuff might have come along since then, which is why they're talking about that. The spines of the dinosaur's backbone were up to 11 times as tall as the vertebrae they grew from. It is thought that these spines were a good deal stronger and larger than the thin rods of Pachycephalosaurs like Dimetrodon. Okay. Let's see. The surroundings in which the Spinosaurus lived mostly covered present-day northern Africa, and its teeth were very unlike most theropod teeth. They were serrated and more flattened. Okay. So, yeah, I mean, regardless of which form it takes, or if it was, like, semi-aquatic or fully aquatic or not aquatic at all, I think this thing will kill you pretty good. On this dinosaur will kill you pretty quickly scale, I would give it a 10 out of 10. I would give it up there. It'll definitely shred you. Page 1 also doesn't have any named attacks. He doesn't, really. He just kind of turns into a big scary lizard and goes roar at you. And he was actually taken out by Big Mom. Big Mom kind of just punched him once and he went down, which, you know what, page 1, it's okay. Honestly, page 1 and Ulti not only made it out alive, they also ended up as new members of the 9 Red Scabbards under Yamato. I guess right now it's only the 2 Red Scabbards, but hey, Yamato's gonna work on it, all right? There'll be more to come after this, right? But hey, yeah, if I was page 1, honestly, straight up, and all the chaos that was going on at the festival, one punch from a Yonko, I'm down. Even if, like, page 1 would have regained consciousness later, I would have been like, what's going on? Okay, screw this. I'm just staying unconscious. I'm just pretending to be out the rest of the fight. I don't care. I'm done. I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore. I'm doing a career change after this, right? And, yeah, I guess that's what happened. All right, cool. Go Spinosaurus. I've always liked the Spinosaurus. Granted, I've liked the design before we knew what it actually looked like. But, page 1's design is pretty cool, and especially his hybrid form. He looks really emo. He has, like, an emo, like, hairstyle. Like, his hair is, like, over his face like this. Emo dinosaur. Cool. All right. So what's next here? Let's talk about Sasaki. Yeah, somebody's got to at some point, right? Oh, poor Sasaki. I feel like Sasaki is the one of the Tobiropo that just didn't have anything going for him, right? Like, apparently there was a relationship between him and Kyoshiro of Denjiro back when he was still the ruler of the Yakuza. Apparently they were drinking buddies, and they knew a lot about each other, and there was something going on there that maybe could have been explored. I'm sure Oda wrote some stuff down in his notes, but we never really talked about him very much, right? Sasaki kind of just shows up. He turns into a Triceratops. That was his Zoan. Fights against Frankie. Does some pretty heavy damage to the Frankie Shogun, but Frankie ultimately defeats him. And he doesn't, he defeats him with, I believe, the Radical Beam, right? He uses, the Victory V, and then Sasaki breaks the Franken Sword, and then destroys the General Frankie. Frankie has to eject and use the Radical Beam to defeat him. But that's pretty much it. That's all said and done at that point. But that doesn't change the fact that Sasaki has the Triceratops Zoan. And the Triceratops is, one of the most iconic dinosaurs, right up there with T-Rex. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if it went, if you were going to do a poll of everybody's favorite dinosaur, T-Rex would be number 1, Triceratops would be number 2. At the very least, it's the one everybody knows about. So there's actually a cool, look at that fossil. That is a beautiful fossil right there, right? So we got that awesome one there. We have found a lot of these. And by the way, Triceratops with their iconic, head shield and their 3 horns, there were other members of this species that had, 4 horns or even 5 horns and different shaped shields, on their heads. So go look those up, too. Those are also pretty cool. Triceratops is one of the most famous dinosaurs. In the ensuing years, hundreds of Triceratops skulls and other remains have been found within the Hell Creek Formation. Oh, that's so cool! In Montana, providing a particularly rich yield. Triceratops skulls were very rugged, which helps explain why they have survived so well for 72 million years. I guess that makes sense. I mean, they had the horns and the shields and everything. I guess they were built to last. Let's see here. The teeth of the Triceratops lined its mouth in batteries, up to 40 columns of teeth. Wow, these dinosaurs had batteries and binoculars? I'm learning so much today. This meant that Triceratops possessed some 432 teeth in all. Wow. Oh, yeah, keep in mind, they're herbivores. All right? So, yeah, it'll definitely still kill you. You don't want to piss off a Triceratops, trust me. It's funny that that's the first one of these I use that on. Yeah, you don't want to piss off a T-Rex or a Spinosaurus. What? You really don't want to piss off a Triceratops. It'll kill you pretty good. I mean, it'll trample you or gore you with one of the three horns. I think Zorro actually kills a Triceratops canonically. Yeah, because they go to Little Garden where we do see dinosaurs at Little Garden. And remember, the Triceratops actually does use Santoryu. It uses three-sword style. So out of respect, Zorro also used three-sword style on the Triceratops. You know, you just got to respect a fellow practitioner of your sword skill. You know, absolutely, right? Okay. And this is the point where it didn't really come up until now. But Oda basically does a thing with a lot of the dinosaurs in this story where he's like, wow, wouldn't it be funny if this is the way dinosaurs worked? And he just does it in One Piece. So Triceratops, I need to reiterate, not something special Sasaki is doing or something unique with the devil fruit. Triceratops, as a species in this world, in the world of One Piece, are able to make the frills along their head spin like a helicopter, and they could achieve flight. And I don't hear or see a single thing about that in this book. I was with you up until now, Ollie's book on dinosaurs, and I don't see a single look. They got this fossil all wrong. It should be like this. You know, like, yeah. So Sasaki is able to fly like a helicopter by spinning the frills, and he has some different techniques. He has a helicopterus, where he just spins around a lot and cuts down a bunch of people. He has Tamaceratops and Magnum Ceratops. Magnum Ceratops is a really cool name for an attack. Magnum Ceratops is a technique that was actually the first real technique. Now, I guess Baby 5 does it as well, but the first technique to do serious damage to the Frankie Shogun. Like, when Baby 5 used, like, the sickle girl, she was able to stab the arm of the Frankie Shogun, but it wasn't really that big of a deal. Sasaki, with Magnum Ceratops in his full form, I guess not his full form, his hybrid, but was able to completely obliterate the Frankie Shogun to the point where Frankie had to hit the ejector button. He's never done that before up until this fight. So you do not question the raw power of the Triceratops, all right? It'll mess you up. So just keep that in mind, along with the next two dinosaurs we're going to be discussing. They can do things somewhat beyond, well, who knows? Maybe we haven't found all of the fossils yet of Triceratops. Maybe Triceratops could have flown. I don't know. We're still waiting on the evidence. The jury is still out, but we'll get there at some point. All right, what's next? We're talking about Queen next. Remember that one time Luffy jumped into a Brachiosaurus and slid all the way down, and then Dory showed up and cut the damn thing's head off, and then he flew right out like a slide? That was the most random thing in One Piece, and I think one of the most underappreciated moments of awesome in this story, like, of all times, of how that went down. Anyway, Queen has the power of the Brachiosaurus. However, Queen has modified the Brachiosaurus with science! Mad science to boot. So, the natural order of things, the way that things would normally work with a Brachiosaur in One Piece, is that the Brachiosaur can kind of detach this section and the tail section. See, the body is in two parts, right? You have the long section that's like a snake, and then the part with the legs, all right? And so, as we all know, Brachiosaurs can separate themselves, and they can basically be just like really long snakes that can wrap around people and crush them to death. So Queen is obviously able to use that ability. However, the Brachiosaurs of old used to actually keep their bodies off to the side. They couldn't do anything with them. They would just be useless over there, just lingering around until the snake reattached. But no, Queen, as a man of science, adapted rocket launchers to them, so they could also fire, like heat-seeking, fire and forget missiles that just lock on and attack you. They didn't work too well. They ended up just blasting his ass. But hey, he's thinking outside the box like a real mad scientist does, right? So the sheer power of a Brachiosaur alone. Queen mentioned that, like, I've been able to crush even proficient armament hockey users with this technique. Thankfully, Sanji not only had the ability of armament hockey, but he also went through his Germa metamorphosis at this point, and he had, like, iron steel skin, so his skin got kind of, like, dented, but he was able to, like, you know, break it back into the way he usually was. And so he used that as his power-up, right? And so we have Queen, a couple of techniques here. We have Brachio Bomber. That's the technique he uses against Big Mom at the prison. He just jumps off of a cliff, goes into his full form. How much did they weigh? Does it say? Let's see. Weight up to 30 tons. So 30 tons of Queen jump off of a cliff and then slam head first right into Big Mom. And Big Mom wasn't even fazed by that. She got her memories back. She remembered who she was, but she was like, huh? What's going on here? 30 tons of dinosaur just gave her a minor headache. My God, Big Mom was a monster. All right, I still don't think she's dead. She was able to survive that. That makes it less likely, I think, that a lava would have been the thing to kill her. But anyway, yeah, that was Brachio Bomber. And then he has Black Coffee, a technique named Black Coffee. Now, the reason for that is because the way that you would say, like if you were saying it in English and Japanese, the word black, it comes out as like brachio. Like it would sound similar to brach. So it would sound like Brachiosaurus. And then kohi can be read as like a light ray or light laser. And so kohi is also Japanese for coffee. Kohi itadakimasu or something like that, right? Okay, so light laser, brachio light laser is basically the translation there. He shoots a laser beam out of his mouth, like zoop, zoop, zoop. There you go, right? And then we have Brachiosaurus, which that's the one where he turns into a snake and tries to crush Sanji apart. And he has a bunch of different mechanical alterations like rocket launchers, and he can extend his neck even further with his mad science technology, and he has like a mechanical arm that gets adapted into this form too. And so Queen was just insane. And it makes sense because he is canonically Frankie's dad. You could definitely see where Frankie gets the crazy, super funky nature to make a bunch of wacky robots and cyborgs and things. He gets it from his dad. Queen is awful, but, you know, that's, I guess, the knowledge he imparted onto his son, I suppose, right? In the brief moments that they knew each other, because Frankie got abandoned by his parents pretty early on. Anyway, yeah. So that's the Brachiosaur. And then finally, ending us out, we have the pterodactyl. I'm sorry. Pteranodon. All right. So the mighty Pteranodon of the skies was used by King Albert. All right, he has the power. I literally moved it away from the screen here. Okay, so what could the Pteranodon do? If Brachiosaurus could separate its head from its body and the Triceratops could fly, where exactly does that leave the Pteranodon? Well, let me show you. You see this kind of frill-looking thing coming off of the Pteranodon's head? You might think that there's like a very specific reason for that, like aerodynamic or when it's in flight or some kind of intimidating display or something. No. See, what they would actually do is they would grab onto that frill and then they would pull it back, you know, like it's one of those like toy guns that you put the little, like a Nerf gun or something, you put the ball into and then you load it and then you fire it. It's kind of like that. You'd stretch your entire beak back and then let it go, and then the like kinetic force would just zip it out like a spear. And that's how the Pteranodons hunted in the olden times. I really think Oda, when designing this, was just like, man, wouldn't it be crazy if, like, a Triceratops could just spin its frills and fly? Man, wouldn't it be crazy if, like, that thing on the back of a Pteranodon's neck would just worked as, like, loading a gun and just firing, like, its head as a spear? Yeah, why not? All right, sure. Let's do it. All right. Pteranodon is one of the largest pterosaurs, or flying reptiles, that ever lived some 89.3 million years ago in what is now the central region of the USA. Woo! America dinosaur! Let's go! Pteranodon was one of the last pterosaurs. He was once considered to be the largest creature that could fly. Except for its enormous size, Pteranodon resembled present-day birds in that its beak contained no teeth and its bones were hollow. Its wingspan was huge and is similar to that of a small aircraft, which made it a veritable giant of the air. Yeah, seriously. Can you imagine this thing? This thing had a size of up to 9 meters, 30 feet of wingspan. Can you imagine being like outside and seeing this thing fly over? Just the veritable just shadow of death that would be blanketed over you when this thing sees you. And like honestly, compared to the size here between a human and a pteranodon, like we were probably like, if you ever do get like isekai'd back into dinosaur land, you would be on the menu, I would assume here. Its diet consisted mainly of fish, but I don't know if it was that picky. Like if it sees you walking around, especially me, I'm only like 5'5". I'm walking around, I look up, that thing's gonna be dive bombing right at me. It's like, yum. Oh, this is great. Pteranodon was nevertheless a rather curious-looking creature, for its head with its long pointed beak was larger than the trunk of its body. Wow. Wait a minute. The beak was longer than the trunk of its body. That is insane. This thing was massive. All right. So King has a couple of different attacks with this form. We see him in his hybrid very briefly, and he uses the technique Tonkyudon. All of his attacks end in don or odon because Pteranodon, okay? So he has this one attack where he goes into his hybrid form that gives him the really long wingspan of a Pteranodon while he still has his human body, and then he just kind of slices everybody with like an elbow slash because of the super long wings. Then he has Tempura Udon, where he's the one that rears back his head flap and then lets it go, and it springs like a jet-powered harpoon or something right at Zoro. And then we finally have the Bryzondon, which is kind of just like, it's sort of like a Rankyaku technique, sort of like from the Six Powers. He kind of like sends out a bunch of like flaming sickles of power right at you, whether it be like friction, like he's igniting the air, or it's just because he's a Lunarian and he has the flames on his back, he's able to like ignite stuff. It's probably more of that. But yeah, they do resemble like Rankyakus that are on fire, all right? But ultimately, King didn't really rely too much on the Pteranodon form. He kind of focused more on like his Lunarian abilities in the later part of his battle with Zoro, and then eventually had like his ultimate technique that turned him into like a magma dragon. That had nothing to do with the fact he was a Pteranodon. His ultimate technique just created a magma dragon, okay? And then Zoro cut through that with his Enma, and we all know how that fight went right there. But yeah, being a flying pterosaur, definitely advantageous. And remember, there's only 5 fruits that let you fly in the world, so that's pretty impressive that King had one. Also used it to knock down the Queen Mama Shanter over the edge of the waterfall, and then they got back up, and then Marco kicked them over, which I think Marco's actually the next video we're going to be discussing, a dedicated video on the phoenix fruit. So yeah, I'll tell you what, that's crazy. Oh man. Okay, well that was King's Dinosaur, and now let's talk about, I guess, some other dinosaurs really quick that we would like to see. Considering I have the whole damn encyclopedia here, I'm just going to turn to a random page. I will turn to 3 random pages to see what dinosaurs we could get in the story, and then you tell me down below, you comment down below which dinosaurs you would like to see in One Piece. Let's see what we got here. Okay, this isn't a great one, but it's an aquatic dinosaur. Hey, if a fish fruit can exist. We have the Allosaurus. Yeah, it has its very long neck. It's the Loch Ness Monster. Wait, that's just the Loch Ness Monster. Okay, Ryu no Mi, mythical variant, Nessie. Let's just go with it. We already fought, I think, that character in One Piece D&D Marines, so why not? Let's see, what else? We have the Albertosaurus. The Albertosaurus. Albert should have had the Albertosaurus. King should have turned into this thing. All right, what was it named by? A guy named Albert? Doesn't actually say. I would assume... Oh, no, Alberta. It was found in Alberta in Canada. Okay, I see. A Canadian dinosaur. I gotcha. It bled maple syrup. The theropod was a close relative of Tyrannosaurus rex. Yeah, it's like the Canadian cousin of the Tyrannosaurus rex. It was half the size of the later distant cousin and a speedy runner. Okay, so seemed to be more capitalizing on speed. And I know the T-Rexes could run fast already. It's theorized this thing could run up to 30 miles per hour. That's pretty good for a dinosaur. That's some pretty good miles per gallon there. All right, we have the Albertosaurus. And then finally, we have the Cotasaurus. The Cotasaurus. It wore coats, I guess, in the Kota Formation of India. is a fossil-rich, yielding evidence of prehistoric fish, reptiles, lizards, plants, and dinosaurs. Cotysaurus is believed to be the oldest known sauropod. Ooh, so it's like a cousin of the Brachiosaur and the Apatosaurus. It shares traits of both sauropods and prosauropods. No other dinosaur has yet been discovered that possesses these transitional traits. Also, he's a transitional fossil. That's really cool. Herbivore, like a lot of the sauropods, but that's pretty nifty. There might have been one of the earlier sauropods that began to evolve and pop up in this world. That's pretty neat. All right. Well, anyway, hope you guys enjoyed the video and you learned as much about dinosaurs as I did today. There will be a test. Remember, dinosaurs had access to coffee, batteries, and what was the other thing? Binoculars. Yeah. So, study. I'll tell you what. All right. Well, anyway, thanks for watching the video, everybody. Next video is going to be on Marco the Phoenix. Can he ever die? I don't know, maybe. But he will rise from the ashes. All right, thanks for watching, everybody. This will be Teching, signing out.